The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald takes place in the summer of 1922. This is a little less than 4 years after World War I, or the Great War. Two of the main characters, Nick and Jay Gatsby, both served in the war, but what exactly did they do in the war, and what does the book tell us about this? And is the stuff that the book tells us, is it grounded in reality, or is it just made up for the sake of the book? Well, there are only really 2 times we get to hear about Jay's and Nick's service in the war. These are on page 47, where Gatsby says he recognizes Nick and then asks if Nick was in the 3rd Infantry Division of the war, to which Nick replies, "Why yes, I was in the 9th Machine Gun Battalion of the 3rd Infantry Division." Gatsby tells Nick he was a first lieutenant for the 7th Infantry Division before leaving to talk to the other party guests. The second instance where we learn about their service is on page 55, where Nick and Gatsby are kind of walking around Gatsby's house, and Nick spots a war medal, picks it up, and reads, "Major J. Gatsby." Nick asks Gatsby he thought he was a first lieutenant, not a major, and Gatsby explains that he was later promoted to major after the war for his valor and leadership during the Argonne Forest Battle, or the Battle of Argonne Forest. So using what we've learned from these 2 pages, let's expand a bit. So Nick said he was part of the 9th Machine Gun Battalion. Machine gun battalions are now extinct in the United States Armed Forces, and rather machine gun teams are mixed in with riflemen and all other infantry jobs. Today, machine guns are operated in 2-man teams with 1 spotter and 1 gunner, but practically all infantry use an automatic gun to some degree in the world. In World War I, automatic rifles, guns that would fire by themselves without having to be pulled multiple times, were very new, and they were pretty primitive. In fact, the accuracy, damage, and rounds per minute by even the lowest tier assault rifles of today's world they surpassed that of the machine gun back then. But anyways, in World War I, machine guns, rather than just 2 people, were operated in teams of 6. They needed 1 person to aim it, they needed 2 to carry it around whenever they'd need to move positions, and these 2 other people would also work to cover the rest of the crew as they'd operate the gun. They needed 1 person to cool down the gun as it'd get very hot. They needed 1 person to carry around the ammo and feed it into the gun. They needed 1 person to repair it whenever it'd break or jam, which it would a lot. Not a lot of the world at the time, other than the United States, Germany, and France, actually used these guns. The machine guns were pretty expensive, actually. We can only imagine what Nick went through, though. Machine gun crews were targeted because they caused a lot of damage to their enemies, but they couldn't move around a lot, so they made very easy targets. I can only imagine that Nick went through a lot in World War I, but I can't say exactly what he went through, because there isn't a lot of records as to what 9th Machine Gun Battalion did in World War I. As for Gatsby, we have a bit more information. Gatsby says he was a first lieutenant in the 7th Infantry Division. He also says he led 3 battalions in a surprise raid against German forces in the Argonne Forest. He was successful and promoted to the rank of major after the war. So let's talk a bit about the 7th Infantry Division. Well, while on the Western Front, this is overseas in France, the 7th Infantry did not see action at full divisional strength, though its infantry and reconnaissance elements did engage German forces every now and then. However, on October 11th, 1918, it came under shell fire, and later at Saint-Mihiel came under chemical attack. Elements of the 7th probed up toward Prenay near the Moselle River, capturing positions and driving German forces out of the region. It was at this time that the division first received its shoulder sleeve insignia, which looks like that of the symbol on the back of a black widow. There's really no reason as to why they got it, but most of the sleeve insignias are just supposed to look cool. The battle at which Gatsby was promoted took place in Argonne Forest, France. It was actually referred to as the Meuse Argonne Offensive or the Maas Argonne Offensive, but it was also called Battle of the Argonne Forest. It was part of the final Allied offensive of World War I, and it stretched along the entire Western Front. It was fought from September 26, 1918 until the armistice, which was on November 11, 1918. There are 3 phases to the battle, but we only need to talk about the first 2. During the first one, the Americans attacked at 5:30 in the morning on September 26th. The results were positive. After 3 days of non-stop fighting, the Allies gained 5 miles of ground, and the fighting mostly took place in villages and ruins scattered around the Western Front. The second phase is probably where Gatsby comes into play. During this second phase, American forces flanked German forces by using the cover of the surrounding trees in the Argonne Forest. Gatsby talked about the use of Lewis guns during this fight and how they helped in the fight. Lewis guns are actually prototypes of a portable version of the same guns that aircraft used. So essentially the same aircraft that you see with the Red Baron or even Snoopy. They could reload themselves very quickly, and they did not need to be cooled down, but they weren't in huge supply because they were really, really expensive to produce and even more expensive to refill with ammunition, as they used a unique type of ammunition. So that's basically all I could get out of the book. I hope this adds to the character whenever you think of Gatsby or Nick, and in conclusion, The Great Gatsby does a pretty good job of grounding all the information in reality. Rather than making up some fake stuff about Gatsby getting a promotion and writing down things that sounded slightly warlike, F. Scott Fitzgerald actually did his research and based everything in reality. Thank you for listening, and have a nice day, guys.